Hi, this is Nikki Woods, and for this week's author chat, I am beyond pleased. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am and just honored to have Bernice L. McFadden on as our featured author. She is the author of 9 critically acclaimed novels, including Sugar, Loving Donovan, Nowhere is a Place, The Warmest December, Gathering of Waters, and a series of short stories as well. And she's been featured in a ton of publications. She was a finalist for the NAACP Image Award. She is also a 3-time Hurston Wright Legacy Award finalist, as well as the recipient of 3 awards from the BCALA. She lives in Brooklyn, but she is a globetrotter, as you've learned from her Instagram and Facebook feeds, and I am just pleased to talk. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here. I mean, I've been a fan of yours for an extremely long time. I think that you probably, out of all of the authors that I truly admire, have a way of providing such depth to your stories and to your characters, and such uniqueness, I guess, such a unique flavor to everything you pen. When did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
Age 9. I knew 9? Then. Yes, at
so
age
clearly?
9. I'm sorry?
I said, you see it so clearly, age 9?
I did. I was an early reader. My mother taught me how to read. She was a reader as well, even though she claims that she wasn't and she isn't, but she was a big reader back in the day. And she taught me to read early on so I could read to my baby brother. He's 3 years under me. And she needed about an hour after she came home from work to just kind of decompress before she started homework and dinner.
Right.
And it was my job to read to my little brother. And I fell in love with books. I just fell in love with them. And it took me away. It took me every place I wanted to go in my head. And I actually put down the kiddie books at around age 9 and started sneaking books out of her stash. Harold Robbins and Jackie Collins books.
Yeah.
Obviously, I should not have been reading.
Right. I was reading my grandmother's Harlequin romances like at 9 too.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I was like, I want to do this. I want to write stories like this. So I knew.
So what were your next steps then? You knew at 9, but obviously you go through school. Did you really start writing then, or was there a period where you didn't write and then you started like in college, or what was that like for you?
So I was writing little short stories, little kiddie stories, and we spent many of our weekends at Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and there's a graveyard there, a Quaker graveyard that I really thought I had discovered. I thought nobody knew it was there, and I wrote a piece about it and sent it to the New York Times, fully expecting that they were going to publish it. Of course, they didn't. But, over the years, I just kept writing my little stories. But when I went away to high school, I went to boarding school in Pennsylvania, all girls, Catholic, mostly white boarding school. And I think for those 4 years, I really stopped writing. I can't really put my finger on why. It wasn't until I graduated in 1983 and picked up The Color Purple by Alice Walker that I started following that dream again, because up until that point, I hadn't read anything by a person of color. Mm-hmm. Those books just hadn't been accessible to me. And in my head, in my young mind, I kind of had these doubts about becoming the writer that I wanted to be because I wasn't aware of writers of color. So I figured, well, how is this even going to happen? There are no writers of color, and those I was familiar with, they were all deceased. But The Color Purple put me right back on track. So from probably 84, 85, I started submitting short stories to Ascend in, different literary journals and receive rejection letter after rejection letter, I started taking some undergraduate courses at Fordham University, and I walked into a creative writing class, and the woman there, Dr. Lamb, she started reading my little stories and essays, and she pulled me aside and she said, "Why aren't you published?" And that was confirmation for me that I was a good writer and this was a possible thing for me. And I started working on Sugar, which is my first novel, which had actually started out as a poem and advanced into a short story. And I worked on it and, rewrote it over and over again. And over a 10-year period, finally tightened it up. And in 1999, it was picked up for publication. But that took 10 years for that to happen.
So let's talk about. Well, I want to talk about two different things. First, how were you able to? Because I think one of the things that I hear from writers a lot, especially writers who have not been published yet, is they don't think their stuff is good enough. They get one rejection letter and they kind of throw the whole career as a writer out the window. How were you able to last through the rejection letters and keep writing? And keep writing with confidence that, you really had what it took?
It was, there was just something in me that would not allow me to give up. I wanted it so badly, and I felt I was supposed to have it, that this was the thing for me. I remember I worked in the travel and tourism industry for many years, and my other love, travel. And I would sit there at work at my desk knowing full well that I wasn't supposed to be there. Like, it did not feel right to me. So, of course, I had those days when I'd come home and find 3 rejection letters in the mail. This is all before email. And I would say to myself, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this isn't for me. And a few days later, that itch would return. That voice would come back and say, go back and do it again. Mm-hmm. A year before I sold Sugar, I was working at this travel and tourism company. I was the customer service manager, and it was raise time. And I went in, and my superior said, we can't give you a raise. Now, I was doing a really good job. We can't give you a raise this year. And I went back home, and I thought about it, and that little voice was like, go in and quit. And I went back the next day and I quit. I had a little bit of money in the bank, not much. Had a small child. And I spent the next 9 months really reworking Sugar. The money ran out. I was disappointed. I hadn't sold the book. And I went back to work. And a year after that, I sold it. So it's that rejection is really hard to deal with, and you have to develop a thick skin. You have to really cling to the hope of your dream and follow it through. I received 75 rejection letters for Sugar. Everybody said there was no audience for it.
Right. That's amazing. And people always ask me because, as a writer, I always wanted to be a writer, and I've always written. Like you, I started out with the love of reading, and then I just wanted to, I just created stories on my own, but I never thought about being a published author. But when I decided to go, for it, I started receiving the rejection letters, and, people will ask me, well, how did you make it through? And I'm like, I've been in the entertainment business for 20 years. I got very thick skin. This is nothing. For most people, that rejection is very hard. So that's an interesting story. And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about before we talk about your latest offering is the education piece of it, because I know most of the author friends that I have, they've had some sort of professional, writing education. How important was that for you and your career in developing your voice?
I tell people that I am selfish. I learned how to write by reading. I don't know if I really believe you can be taught how to write. I mean, you can, create a beginning, middle, and an end, but is it going to be provocative? Is it going to be moving? I learned that by reading Toni Morrison, Terry McMillan, Stephen King, Marita Golden, like just spending years of reading, and I still practice that. When I went to Fordham University, like I said, I took a creative writing class with Dr. Lamb and probably two more beyond that. But that was it. I know people feel like they need to go to school to get an MFA to learn how to write, and that's not necessarily the case. You can take creative writing classes to help hone your skills, to push you in the right direction, but I think if you have it, you have it.
Gotcha. Wow, that's interesting. So now, Loving Donovan, that is your latest offering, but it is a re-release, correct?
Yes, it was originally published in 2003, I believe.
And so what was the decision, or what was the thinking behind the decision to re-release it?
Well, it's been re-released by Akashic Books, which is a small, powerful press in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And Johnny Temple, the founder, he actually reached out to me about it. I had reissued it just online under my little publishing company, Nikki, as an ebook. And he came to me and he said that Akashic wanted to re-release it in digital form as well as paper form, that he read the story, he loved the story, and he felt that he could bring it to a new audience. And that's how they got re-released.
And that's awesome. Did you do any updates, or you just really wanted to put it back out there?
I didn't touch the original text at all. The one new addition is the foreword by Terry McMillan.
I saw that. And actually, because like I said, I'm a huge fan, so I have everything that you, I think, have ever written in digital and hard copy. And
Thank you.
I did the same for the re-release of Loving Donovan, so I was really thrilled to see that Terry McMillan had written the foreword for this one. I mean, it's just an amazing, like I said, the thing that I love about you, and I don't think that it can be copied, but it's absolutely something that I study, is that you have such a unique voice, and your stories, while they're so real, and I think that they're so relatable, they're just so unique and fresh and vibrant, that I really am just a huge fan of your work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got to really attribute that. I feel like I come from a family of storytellers. I'm sure you probably feel the same. You grow up with these characters around you, your family. You listen to these stories over and over and over again. And for me, it was thrilling. I was the kid that they didn't send out of the room. So as long as
you got all the grown-up conversation, right?
Right. And I was the kid that hung around the elders that, the other kids didn't want to be bothered with, because I loved to hear their stories. And many of those stories end up in some shape or form in my own stories, in my own novels.
That's what I feel about my Jamaican heritage, because that's a lot. That's featured a lot in my writing. I just think that as a whole, as a people, Jamaicans and West Indians, they have such a colorful history and a colorful way of relating that history. That I used to just love, like, you sitting in the room, when the grown folks were talking, and sharing the gossip of the day and the stories, and learning about my family's colorful history.
Yeah, and you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah,
you cannot make it up. It's just fabulous.
Absolutely. So I want to talk to you a little bit also about just the publishing landscape. I know that it's gotten a little bit. Did you just grunt?
I'm sorry, you heard.
It's a little bit more challenging, I think, for African American writers, where you would think that the opposite would be true. Is that? Do you find that to be true, or no? Or do you disagree?
Yes and no. Where big publishing is concerned, yes. They want a particular type of book. They will support a particular type of story for the most part. This is just my opinion and my feeling. You know, Absolutely. I was with big publishing up until 2009. And I got to say that I've been with Akashic for 5 years, and they've done more for my career in 5 years than the 9 with big publishing, because it's about the literature. No matter what that story is, they're about promoting the story, not promoting an outdated idea.
Right.
That's the difference. And so, and publishing, you would think that they're dealing with creatives. You would think that they'd employ creative thinkers, and those aren't the people that are working for publishing. They want more of the same. This worked, X, Y, and Z worked, so we want 50 more of those books. And
X, Y, and
it's
Z.
redundant. Yeah. It becomes redundant. I read a variety of different writers, not just one type of writer. I don't want to read just one type of story. There are millions of stories out there. So now the flip side is, thank God for self-publishing. Back in the day, there was a stigma attached to being self-published. No more. You can write your novel, upload it to Amazon or Barnes & Nobles, and create an audience and make these bestsellers lists. So I think for writers of color, when they've been rejected by the major houses, and even if they're being rejected by the smaller houses, they still have another road to travel. They still have other options, other alternatives. There's nothing that's going to silence their voice if they truly want to be published.
That's awesome. And so just a couple final questions. What advice would you give to writers on how to approach getting started and writing? How long does it take you to write a book?
For me, I used to write a book a year. I'm getting older, so I don't write as quickly anymore, and I think that my subject matter is, really expanding, so it takes me a bit longer. The book that I'm working on now, the Book of Harlan, which will be published next year, I've been working on this book for 4 years. So, again, it's the individual. Some people can write a book. I have some author friends who write books in 4 months, which is like, wow, and good books.
Right.
And good books. But starting out, what exactly is the question? How does the person start writing? How does the person approach publishers?
Well, I want to expand a little bit on what we were just talking about with how often you write a book. So do you have rituals with your writing? What is your writing ritual like? You seem to do a lot of destination writing.
That's only recent. Since, I sold my home in 2012, so for the first few months I kept telling people, I'm homeless. And I was in Hawaii with a lot of other so-called homeless people, and they were like, no, you're not homeless, you're home free.
Oh, yeah, because that's the thing. You're homeless on beaches and in exotic locations. So that's the kind of homeless we all kind of like.
But it's only been with this book that I've been writing. I've actually kind of written this book bits and parts all over the world. But usually I in one place, in one space, I can't write with any sort of noise. Like some people can write to music or the TV in the background. It has to be complete and total silence because there's so much going on in my head. I don't want to miss anything. The only other thing that I do is my space has to be completely put together, clean, spotless, because it's easy to become distracted. the hardest part is sitting down and writing that first line. But if there are things out of place, I'll keep putting it off. I'll keep procrastinating and say, well, let me mop this, let me, dust that to put off that first line. So everything has to be put together, and that's it.
Yes, that was kind of leading into the questions I asked previously about how writers get started, because a lot of the people that I talk to, because I talk a lot about writing, more so for business as opposed to actually fiction writing, but that too. But I think people get so caught up in just getting started,
right,
and figuring out the routines and all of that. So I'm always interested in what everybody, because I can't write at home at all because of what you just said. I'll be doing laundry and washing dishes and playing with the dog. There's just too much going on, even if I'm at home by myself. And I think that people, they're just so curious about other people's routines, writers' routines, et cetera. And so I was curious about that. But what is your advice to not necessarily the publishing aspect, but to just getting started?
It's like that Nike slogan, you just have to do it. You have to put your behind in the seat and put your hands over those keys and do it. I went to see, talking about process, I went to see Toni Morrison at the 92nd Street Y last night. She said at her home on the Hudson, her office looks out over a beautiful river, but her desk faces away from that river because it's too distracting, it's too beautiful. People ask, what do you do? She writes so passionately. It takes a lot out of you. What do you do to take care of yourself? Do you go and take walks because you live in such a beautiful area? She said, no, because I'm interested in weather. And if I go out and walk, that's what I'm going to be focused on, and I'll never write a word. So you have to get rid of those distractions, and you have to submit yourself to that. It's about submission, really. You have to give yourself over completely and totally. And just once you get that first line out, I think the rest is easy.
Right. And one thing I try to stress is, and I think giving yourself and submitting to it is a good way to put it, because it's not something you can be in control of, I guess. And you do have to open yourself up. You do have to be obedient. It's
That's
not
the
that
word.
we all sit down and just, it flows from us. I mean, you have to, writing is work. Writing is structure. Writing is commitment.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Because, you know why? Because, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I have some really wonderful friends in my life, and still they don't think this is work.
No, that's like radio. People think we just show up and talk.
Right.
It's a skill like anything else. I mean,
Thank you. It takes effort.
Yeah. That's funny. Very funny. So, Loving Donovan, it's been re-released, and so it's available everywhere books are sold, and I encourage you to pick it up. But you also have some very wonderful short stories that you've released as well, in shorter ebooks.
Yes, Keeper of Keys, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. And I wrote that story, I think maybe 2000 or 2001. And it's about a woman struggling with AIDS. She finds out she has AIDS and how that affects her life and the life of the people around her who love her. And it's one of my favorite stories. Yeah,
you are really very good, Bernice. I mean, you can write about any country, and I'm sorry, but the title escapes me now. But there was one that you wrote that was set in Africa, correct?
Oh, okay. My Name is Butterfly. Now,
there you go. Yeah,
that's set in Ghana, and so good news that I'll just be breaking here on your show. It's no longer available.
Okay.
But it going to be re-released by Akashic Books in paper and digital form, a new title, Praise Song for the Butterflies, and hopefully in the next year or so.
That is awesome, because that was one of my probably in the top three from you. It was just wonderful. So congratulations on all of your success, and we'll look for all of your new releases, and I encourage you all in the meantime to visit Bernice's previously released books, including Loving Donovan, but also to follow her on social media, because you're just as interesting online as you are between the pages of a book. So I adore you. I really do, and I'm so glad to be connected, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Listen, I really respect and appreciate you supporting not only my work, but, all of these fabulous writers out here, and you being one of them, a fabulous writer.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm working on it. Like you said, it's always something that you study, and I study writers like yourself, so I really appreciate it. And you can follow, like I said, Bernice on all of her social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitter. And I will make sure that these are all posted online so that you can easily access her as well. So thank you, Bernice. I really do appreciate you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
You too, darling.